All right, so my name is Shawn Sommerkamp. I started a Christian executive coaching business after being in the corporate world for about 25 years. I started my business as an executive coach 12 years ago. It's going well. God is awesome, and it's an amazing blessing every day. And what we're going to be talking about today as the first of a four-part series is how to manage our emotions in any workplace situation. I should put a caveat here, except for like bombings and fires and gun scares, but everything else you can manage based on what I'm going to teach you today. I'm approaching this from the perspective that there are four pieces to this puzzle: our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, and then one tool that I'm going to teach you. I'm going to simplify it so that the puzzle pieces kind of fit together. This is not necessarily an oversimplification, but I'm boiling the information down the way I am so that you can take it away and start using it immediately. The truth is, the science of emotion, the depth of Christ's teaching on the mind in all the other Old Testament passages about our thinking, the array of tools that are available out there that we can use, and even our own discipline make this more like abstract art, okay? So it's not as simple as I'm making it sound, but it's worth investing our time to learn how to do what I'm going to teach you guys today. And I hope you find the abstract art as beautiful as I do. So to start with, we're going to begin with the idea of human emotions, right? Probably not surprising, but if you didn't know, surprise is one of our basic human emotions. All humans on the planet everywhere experience surprise. Very interestingly, there have been four major studies conducted over the last 2,500 years to produce a master list of human emotions. Aristotle did one, believe it or not, in 335 BC. You can find it in his Rhetoric 2 book. Charles Darwin in 1872, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. This guy, Robert Plutchik, in 1980. And then UC Berekely in 2017, as just early as 5 years ago. Here are the lists at a glance. What you'll notice is the three on the left have, very few, and then UC Berekely overdid it and have a whole bunch. I am going to ask us, for the purposes of what we're going to be doing today, to focus on the Plutchik wheel, the thing that looks like a little flower there. And you'll see there's 8 human emotions. Inside the chat window, I put a link to the Wikipedia page where you can download this image to your cell phone. And I'm going to ask you to do it to keep it handy and reference it all the time. It looks like more than 8, but there's really only 8. You'll see the core 8 are in the center. And then as you go one ring out, it's the same 8 emotions, just to a lesser degree. And then you go the final last band out, it's the same 8 emotions, but to an even lesser degree. And then between the little flower petals are behaviors that represent a combination of the emotion on the left and the right of it. We're going to reference this toward the end of the presentation. I'm going to teach us how to use this and why it's so important to have this handy and practice using it all the time. What's very interesting is in Charles Darwin's research, which he wrote that book, The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals, he created his list of human emotions based on the way humans expressed their emotions through the muscles in their face, which makes sense that he would have this focus because he is a biologist. He actually operated on cadavers to draw out every muscle in the human face. This is back in 1872, to see how the muscles worked to create expressions across all human beings of every culture, every race, every nation. And because he was an evolutionary biologist, he was interested in how our facial expressions, and therefore, most importantly, our emotions, impacted our ability to survive and thrive in the world. That's why I'm teaching us this, so we can survive and thrive in the corporate world, the small business world, the government sector, healthcare, wherever you're working. If we can understand the evolutionary biology of our human muscles and how we express our emotions, we will thrive. There are a lot of muscles in our face. 42, I have found. I'm not an expert in this, but I'd say most lists would contain 42. And they're all used to create weird emotions, even micro emotions. These expressions happen automatically. We actually can't stop them from happening, and they reflect how we feel on any given day, any given moment. Many of the expressions are hard to reproduce on our own, especially if we just try to move one little muscle. For example, if I asked you to move your levator labii superioris, it would be near impossible unless you put your finger there and started moving it. You can't really just move it by itself. Or the mentalis, that's the little chin muscles right there. You can't just move the chin muscle by itself. You can try. The depressor septi nasi, the two muscles underneath your nasal cavity. Very hard to move those. But when we express an emotion, they do move. Only the extremely talented and practiced individuals can master the manipulation of these facial muscles at that micro level, like Jim Carrey. He can make his face look like other people. He's that talented. But for the rest of us, manipulating our expressions, especially micro expressions, is too hard. Our face will give it away. And if you've never seen a verse to demonstrate this, it's very wonderfully illustrated in God's word in the story of Cain and Abel. In Genesis 4, 5, and 7, it says this: "But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain became very angry and his face was gloomy." There it is. Then the Lord said, "Cain, why are you angry? And why is your face gloomy? If you do well, will your face not be cheerful? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door and its desire is for you, but you must master it." Here it is. Our heart, feelings, emotions are expressed through our facial muscles. Because written text is notoriously prone to being misunderstood and hurting people's feelings, we now have added little facial expressions digitally, called emojis, of course, to the end of our texts so we can be sure to convey what we're feeling, so we don't come across like an idiot, so we can make sure the tone is right and acceptable. All of these emojis capture the same facial muscles used to express human emotions, albeit in an ultra simplified way. We can, in a text, quickly show anger, joy, ecstasy, grief, boredom, sadness, whatever the human emotion is, we can find an emoji with it. So you might be saying by now, so what, Shawn? Why do we care so much about knowing a list of human emotions? Why do we care about our facial muscles expressing those emotions on how we feel? Why has so much effort gone into this over 2,500 years of life on this earth? Because there is a wonderful symbiosis between emotions, facial expressions, and yes, ultimately, emotional intelligence. This is really what it all boils down to. Our own emotional intelligence, and our thinking and our facial expressions and our feelings all tie into it very well. I'm going to get to more about this in just a moment. I put a link in the chat window because remember in 2017, UC Berkeley created a list of human emotions. They have this very slick online emotional intelligence test you can go and take if you would wait till after the presentation. But it asks you to correlate the picture with the human emotion to one of the lists of human emotions given to you. There's 20 of these examples, and then they'll score you based on how well you did. I actually got only 16 out of 20. And yeah, that surprised me that I didn't score higher because, you know, this is what I do as a coach, right? But I didn't because it's not easy. So I'll ask again on your behalf, so what, Shawn? What does this have to do with managing our emotions in any workplace situation? Okay? The power comes in what is scientifically proven predictors of career success. People who succeed in their careers tend to have a very high IQ, great emotional intelligence, and the conscientiousness, which is a personality trait. These are the three. Very interestingly, 2 of these 3 are traits we are born with and can't do anything about. Those are IQ and conscientiousness. By the way, conscientiousness is the the drive and desire we have to see a job done very well, the high quality job. Okay? We can't change IQ and conscientiousness, but we can improve our own emotional intelligence. Therefore, when we work on that, it will pay off in incredible dividends in our career, which will also greatly impact other people that we work with or for or have working underneath us for Christ. This is the key. And it will, of course, even allow us to have a much higher earning potential, which we can use that money to glorify God in many other ways. But emotional intelligence is a little bit more than just learning how to read facial expressions. Here's a definition of emotional intelligence. If you want to take a screenshot of this, this is kind of worth looking at. Emotional intelligence is appraising, expressing, and regulating our own emotions, as well as using this knowledge to read the emotions of others and help them moderate theirs in the moment. Why? For workplace problem solving. And yes, because we're disciples of Jesus, so that we can love others like Jesus loved. That's emotional intelligence. So what if you're thinking right now, you know what, I'm not really good at appraising, expressing, and regulating my own emotions. What can I do about it? Well, that's why we're here. And thanks to this guy, Aaron T. Beck, we have a really effective and powerful technique that we can use starting today. You might be a little bit too tired to do it tonight, but starting tomorrow, that you can use to manage your own emotions and start immediately increasing your emotional intelligence. He was a psychotherapist back in the 60s, and he worked with patients who had depression. And in this, years of research, he noticed something really profound. People with depression verbalize things that they were experiencing, but their perspective was distorted. You might be thinking, yeah, of course, that makes sense. If you got depression, your perspective about things is going to be distorted. But there's a nuanced point here that might not be so clear. He is the one that first realized depression is a cognitive disorder, not a mood disorder. Cognitive disorder means, in some instances, maybe even as you grow, many instances, I'm living proof, we can talk about that later, we can think our way out of depression. Now, I have chronic depression. I have chronic anxiety. Long story why I have it. It had to do with my upbringing, but I've had a complete victory over it. And it's because I've learned the technique I'm about to show you today. This is one of many. No, we can't always think our way out of depression, but many times we can. Thanks to this research of Aaron T. Beck, we now have what is known as a technique called cognitive restructuring. He's the one that founded this. He developed it from his research. You might know this because it's the foundation behind what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is what's used for the most extreme psychological disorders in adults to help them get out of it. That's what CBT is. We're not going to learn that, but we can learn a lesser form of it, cognitive restructuring, that we can use in our career. Here is the definition, the technical definition of cognitive restructuring. It's an emotion regulation strategy that involves changing the trajectory of an emotional response, ours, by reinterpreting the meaning of the emotional stimulus. Okay? Easy to remember, right? Please don't take a screenshot of that. Here's a much simpler definition. Cognitive restructuring is a technique we can use to change the way that we react in each situation by changing the way we think about what just happened in that moment. We can be so aware, no matter what the toxic environment is, someone screaming at us, we just got fired, we got passed over a promotion, whatever it is, in that moment, we can become so aware of what we're thinking and therefore feeling, we can change our internal dialogue right then and there instantly. That's cognitive restructuring. If this works, meaning if we can reframe the thought we just had about the event to intentionally and willingly change how we feel and react to it, then the very profound following truth I'm about to show you is true, but most people don't believe it. Here it is. This is a heavy one, so I'm going to leave it up for a few seconds. The way we feel comes from what we tell ourselves about what's happening to us, not because of what's happening. Okay? Please push the I believe button on this. A lot of people have a difficult time believing this. Maybe you're a believer already. You're like, yeah, I can buy that. The way we feel comes based on what we tell ourselves about what's happening, not because of what's happening. Yeah, I believe it. So if you do, that means nobody can make you mad. You choose to be mad. We are responsible for any emotion that we experience and express, whether that's to our fellow employees, our boss, a customer, fellow drivers on the highway, a colleague. We can control it. They don't make us upset, angry, frustrated, whatever. The disciples did not frustrate Jesus. He chose to be frustrated. That also means we can't frustrate or make angry or sad or disappoint our employees or our boss or our customers or our colleagues. We can't make them happy either, by the way. We think we can, but the truth is they choose to feel the way they feel. And it's an inner dialogue thing. I'm going to teach you in just a minute how that works. Yes, we can cause people to stumble. Jesus said, right? Woe to you who cause even the least of these to stumble, but they choose to fall. If we can learn to listen to our own thinking in the very subtle quietness of our mind, we can therefore manage our feelings and, in a sense, all 42 of those facial muscles. We can control how we show up, the energy we have, how we express our opinions to others, how we deal with their conflict. And managing our emotions comes to managing one thought at a time. We see this powerful truth, obviously, in 2 Corinthians 10:5. We take every thought or a single thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. There's the proof. It's right there. Paul said it. And Philippians 4:8, a passage many of us probably hold dear. Whatever is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and worthy of praise, think about these things. That means whenever we're tempted to get into a negative spiral, when we haven't met our quota at work, an employee is freaking out on us, our vice president is barking at us, our cherished customer takes their business elsewhere, we get fired, whatever else it is, we can choose to think in that moment about truth and honor and righteousness and purity and what's lovely and commendable. We don't have to focus on the negative thing. And we certainly don't have to tell ourselves negative things. There are many more wonderful, powerful, life-changing passages about the importance of our inner thoughts. This is just a short list. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. Here's just a few. These directly address our thinking, our mindset. But I could speak for an entire hour about passages that do it subtly, that hint at it. Here's one example. Proverbs 28:1, the wicked flee, though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Can you see the importance of managing our thoughts tucked away inside this verse? What is the person running from in this verse? Nothing, right? So, what's causing the person to run, to flee? When we know no one's pursuing them, it's something that they're telling themselves. They're convinced something or someone is after them, so they're running. That's an inner dialogue, little secret passage. There are many of these all throughout the Old Testament and New Testament. Our thoughts are what create our feelings. And the way we think creates the way we feel, which creates the expressions on our face, and it creates the responses that we have, our actions. That means the way we think is communicated to the whole world, whether we like it or not. And I want to give you scriptural proof about this. Another one of those things that's kind of secretly tucked away in here, Ecclesiastes 10:20. I'm sure you've heard of this before. In fact, anyone who's ever heard me speak, I share this all the time. Do not revile the king, even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, lest a bird of the air carry your words, a bird on the wing report what you say. Solomon is not telling us that there are mind-reading birds that eavesdrop on us thinking badly about anyone else, and then fly to them and say, hey, did you know Shawn's thinking negatively of you? That's not what he's saying. What he's saying here very profoundly, very poetically is we can't hide what we're thinking about. It's impossible. That's Darwin's research found in Ecclesiastes chapter 10. And by the way, that's the verse that is how we come out with this euphemism, a little birdie told me, which is why Twitter named themselves Twitter, because of Ecclesiastes chapter 10, a little bird told me, although they won't admit it. What we're thinking about will be obvious to other people. They may not know specifically what it is, but they'll know when we're thinking something negatively because we'll be expressing it. Yes, in our facial muscles, but many other, about 50 other nonverbal ways. We think we can hide it. We mistakenly think people can only tell when we're feeling negative emotion when we explode. No, they can even tell little tiny micro expressions on our face. Those little muscles shift, people can read it. People can also read when we're looking down at the ground, when we're crossing our arms, when we refuse to respond back quickly, when we sigh a lot. There's lots of things that Ecclesiastes 10 tells us give us away. So with this bit of background, I want to now teach you how to manage your emotions in any workplace situation. I'm going to teach you a very specific cognitive restructuring technique that I developed called thought tuning, okay? Here it is. I'm going to kind of go through it fast, but we can talk about it more when we have our Q&A. Step 1, ask yourself every so often, whether you're in a negative mood or not, what is my energy level right now on a scale of 1 to 10? Get some people on this call to question bomb you every so often. Just agree to it. Just ask each other. Do each other a favor and get each other used to asking yourselves this question. And then give yourself a score. If you're feeling negative and low energy, give it a 1. If you're feeling positive and high energy, give it a 10. Just get used to asking this as a very quick little barometer, okay? This is not Christian mysticism. This is not really energy levels. This is just a metaphoric way of quickly determining, hey, what's my energy level right now? I'm at about a 4, or I'm at about a 9. Obviously, my energy level right now is probably a 10, but get used to asking that. Then take the time to identify exactly what the emotion word is. And that's using the Plutchik wheel. Pull out that wheel, save it as a photo on your iPhone and pull it out and look through the inner ring and see if the 8 in the center, any one of those describe that energy level. If nothing there is, go one ring outer and read through those and see if any one of those it describes exactly how you feel, or then go to the outer ring. Why is this so important? It's based on the research of the founders of emotional intelligence, Dr. Peter Salovey and Dr. John Mayer. They wrote a book called The Emotionally Intelligent Manager, and it was based on this amazing, groundbreaking research where they took a ton of test subjects, showed them this really dark movie. I don't remember what the movie was. Maybe they used many different ones, but all of the people would watch this dark, sad movie, maybe like the Titanic or The Road, if you've never seen that. Man, Viggo Mortensen, what a movie. And then after the movie was over, they interviewed them over a period of several hours to kind of get a gauge on how they were feeling emotionally. Those people that could actually put a real emotion word to describe what they were experiencing could get out of the negative emotion like 10 times faster than those who couldn't, who weren't really aware of exactly what that emotion is. It serves us incredibly well to be able to say, you know what, I'm feeling angry right now. For guys, this is especially difficult. It's a great practice to get into the habit of this. You will increase your emotional intelligence if you get good at this. Now let's go to step 3. This is the toughest one. This is going to take the most practice. Ask yourself, okay, I know my energy level's low. I identified that I'm feeling sad. Now, what am I telling myself that's causing me to feel sad? Because it's not what's happening. It's not because your girlfriend broke up with you. It's not because your boss fired you. That's not it. It's something that we're telling ourselves about what just happened that's causing us to feel so negative. And I'm asking you to go dark and deep immediately, right off the bat. go to that dark place where you listen to the horrible things we say to ourselves about ourselves. We say things like, I'm a loser. I'm always going to be a loser. I'm never going to be successful. I'm an idiot to them. I'm so stupid. Why do I even try? I'm a fraud. It's only a matter of time before people find this out. I'm going to die poor. I'm going to die alone. We say things to ourselves that we would never, ever think about saying to another human being, but we do it to ourselves all the time. So practice this again and again until you can get really down into that core deep level. I had a client that worked at Univision in New York City. We got on a call and I'd been coaching her for years. And I could tell she was feeling a little off. I could read it on her facial expressions. A little bird told me that she was not doing great. So I said, hey, so what are you telling yourself right now that's making you feel so bad? And she knew what that meant because we had practiced this many times. And she said, I guess I'm telling myself I'm overwhelmed at work. So I said, okay, so if I just walked up to you and I said, hey, you're overwhelmed, that would make you feel bad? And she's like, no, I guess not. I'm like, okay, so let's go deep and dark. What is it? What are you really telling yourself? And she said, after thinking for about 30 seconds, she's like, oh, I got it. I'm telling myself my mom was right. I'm always going to be a failure. And as soon as she said it, she popped out of that. She's like, what a horrible thing to tell myself. Okay, that's step 3. Get really great at it. Now, this is where we state our 5 core values. Mine are fun, emotional health, spirituality, leadership, and truth. I have them memorized. I say them to myself many times during the week, sometimes multiple times a day. I do it as a prayer, like I'm proclaiming it to God. I say, after realizing the horribly negative thing I just said myself, I do this. I'm like, wait a minute, God, you made me to be a man of fun, emotional health, spirituality, leadership, and truth. That is who you made me to be. That is who I am. That's step 4, state your core values. You might be saying right now, what are core values? Well, if you have a phone, you can point it at the screen to this QR code, put your name and email address in there. You will get into my email list. You can immediately unsubscribe if you want, but the first email you get, which you will get it immediately right now, it is a link to the core values assessment that you can download. The core values assessment will take you maybe 8 minutes to complete. I'm going to ask you to do it intuitively. There's instructions at the top of it. And you're going to walk away with what your core values are, which is how you filter everything in the world. Any conflict we have with another person, it's because one of our core values was confronted by them. You have difficulty with someone at work, they're confronting one of your core values. Go ahead, do a little screen, put your name and email address in there to download this. I'll put it up again toward the end. That's step 4, state out loud your core values. Step 5, now say, based on one or more of those 5 core values, what is a better thing to tell myself instead of what I told myself earlier? This is where we reframe the thought from the perspective of who we know we are as a child of God. So if I was telling myself, let's say I just got fired for something, which I've been fired twice. It's not fun, but it's the last time it happened, I was like, hey, no big deal. God's got something awesome ready for me. But before I got to that place, I went to a dark place initially. I'm like, I'm such a loser. I went through the thought tuning process. I get to this point. I now know my core values. So I'm like, wait a minute. God created me to be a leader. I can bounce back from this. I know there are lots of companies looking for great leaders. This one didn't appreciate what I had to offer. That's fine. It's their choice, their loss. I'm going to go find something else. My energy immediately, if you remind me to and you're interested, I'll tell you the story behind that. It's a short story. I don't want to do it now, but a prolifically challenging thing happened to me when I got fired. But I snapped out of it and I spent 2 minutes in a funk and then was home free. Then we get to step 6. Now, with that new statement that we've just said, based on our 5 core values, we'll ask this. How does this new thought make me feel? Pull out the Plutchik wheel again and find the new positive, higher energy emotion that you're feeling. Label it, identify it. This allows us to connect how our inner dialogue now improves our mood, our energy level. That's what this is for. That's what step 6 is. What is my new feeling as a result? And then the final step, step 7, we then ask ourselves, this is where we use visualization like all professional athletes do. We're going to now use it in our career. We're going to close our eyes with that new emotion in mind that we just identified, and we're going to visualize ourselves with as much detail as we can muster how we behave when we're feeling that new way. Picture it. The expression on your face, how you feel, the way you talk to others, how you're walking through the hallway at work. Whatever that visualization is, do a very vivid visualization. This is what athletes do before they start a competition. You ever seen a tennis pro when they're getting ready to serve, they're bouncing that ball on the back line before they serve? Do you know what they're doing? They're visualizing exactly where inside the paint on the other side of the net that serve is going to land. All professional tennis players think this. Jack Nicklaus, the greatest golfer that ever lived, has a very famous saying. He said, I never took a swing at a ball until I first visualized exactly where I wanted that ball to land on the green. It's a great thing that athletes do. We can now do that as part of our emotional intelligence so that we can manage our emotions in any workplace situation. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for 2 new videos each week. Tell me in the comments below about your career situation, and I'll make a video for you with a shout out. You can also become a member at Motivationeer.com. Your career is not just a way to make a living, it's a way to transform the world.